So guys, how are you? Waco from Revolution in the Rake. Here with my buddy Adam Craniotes, the founder of the global phenomenon that is RedBar Crew. We're going to interview him today. First as a watch collector, and second as the man that has created this extraordinary organization, gathering, pilgrimage site, which is RedBar. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about bowel health later. But that's
I think that's important.
It's very important. You know,
Yeah.
I've been eating a much more plant-based diet recently, and it's been making me go very frequently to the men's room. I feel good, but you know, and maybe this
And
is
you
a
look
secret to health.
good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
think
thank you.
there's definitely something to that.
But like I must have pooped out like a mountain of poop like in the last couple of days. It's I'm in New York and they have so much like kale and broccoli.
There are a
rice
lot of
here.
options.
It's just,
A lot of options for
yeah.
people on the plant-based
It's
diet.
like if I was to stand on top of my poop, like right now, like if I had special poop shoes that I could climb this mountain of poop I was on, I might be able to touch the moon.
Wow.
Yeah. So on that note,
On that note, it's all downhill from here.
Great to see you, brother.
Thank you.
I want to talk to you a little bit about your collection, but the first
Sure.
watch I love to talk to you about is this extraordinary Casio GShock.
Yeah.
Right? This thing is so cool, and I've just been playing with it a little bit. Steel watch with electroplated gold,
Yeah.
created for one of GShock's big anniversaries.
It's the 35th anniversary, yeah.
Tell me a bit about this watch, but tell me also about your relationship with GShock.
Well, you know, just to start, you know, at the beginning, as they say, begin at the beginning. The first watch I ever got from my grandfather, and I think it was around 1980, and I was about 7 years old, so that dates me, unfortunately. And it was a Casio F7. All it did, tell the time, push a button, a little light comes on. And what you have to know is when I say a light comes on, it was like a tiny light bulb. Like they didn't have this electroluminescent crap or
Yes.
LEDs back
Yes.
then. And but I was over the moon with this watch. And I mean, I wore the snot out of it. It got so scratched up, my mother actually sent it back to Casio. I think in New Jersey is where their headquarters are, and they replaced the crystal just so I could see it.
Wow.
But subsequently, every watch that I bought, you know, by allowance money or doing chores, was a Casio.
Right.
And not a GShock because GShock didn't come out until 1983.
Right. Okay.
So when the first GShock came out, I mean,
Yes.
I was Johnny on the spot to get one.
Right.
And then ever since then, I've just been a huge fan. And even
Yes.
once I got into mechanical watches and maybe took more of a professional interest in this business, I was always buying G-Shocks.
That's amazing.
And so this particular watch actually harkens back to the original, the DW5000C.
Yes.
And the case design. But this is the first time that they've done their square with the full metal treatment.
Yes.
Now, it's not the first time they've done that. 1996 is when they came out with the MRGs. So those were the more upscale G-Shocks that had the metal case of steel. They
Right.
used titanium as well.
Wow.
But so for their anniversary, this was sort of the big deal. And they have a standard steel one in their production pieces, but this polished one, which is very blingy, and frankly, probably the blingiest watch I own. And that's
Yes.
the joke, is that it's a Casio.
I
The one
love
that sometimes I'm a little embarrassed to wear.
I love it.
But it's I don't know. It just, to me, it's I had to bring a G-Shock out. And I figure if I'm sitting here with you,
Yes.
it has to be the gold one.
Well, it's amazing because, you know, I've interviewed 3 New York-based collectors, and every one of them has brought a G-Shock.
Yes.
So I interviewed
I love that.
Yoni
Yep.
from Material Good, and he brought his bathing ape G-Shock.
Yep.
I interviewed this amazing guy who I know is part of your crew called Gabriel Benador.
Oh.
Right? Was such a great guy.
God,
And-
the guy you love to hate. His collection just.
But he brought the sickest watch. He brought the G-Shock that he wore when he was a paratrooper in the Israeli military.
Yeah, that tells some stories.
Right, and that he used to direct mortar fire. And so can you imagine the stories related to that
Oh,
watch,
yes.
you know? And also something not only he, but his entire unit were dependent on.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh no, they do what they say on the tin.
Exactly. So what would be the occasion that you would wear this kind of beautiful, blingy, gold G-Shock with? I know for me it'd be a swimming pool and white Speedos, but I...
Yeah. You know, me and Speedos is just like already, we're borderline like illegal. Like, you know, I can't get within 500 yards of like a
That's the beauty
playground
of
or
a
a
Speedo.
school.
It's
Yeah.
like the more inappropriate you think it is, the more you got to put them on. You know,
I think, like I said, with me it's just filthy. With you, I'm sure it's a fashion statement and it's fine.
I look ridiculous.
Yeah. You know, I'll tell you, the last time I wore it actually was a dinner with ASAP Ferg from you know, the ASAP mob.
Amazing.
He actually had performed at their 35th anniversary, and they just came out with a limited edition G-Shock for him.
Yes.
That he designed, which is actually amazing,
Yes.
beautiful watch. But I figure, well, where am I going to wear a gold GShock.
Yes.
And then what was interesting is during the dinner, there was a little presentation, and then they presented him with a gold
Oh, really?
GShock.
Amazing.
And he had seen mine and was like, whoa, that's cool. Like, what's
Yes.
that? La, la, la.
Yeah.
And then, like, 5 minutes later, they
got
give
it.
him one. So,
Wow. But he already knew the story thanks to you. You know?
yes.
That's fantastic. So we were just having a chat earlier about your watches, and I love how your watches always involve either your wife or your mother, or both.
Yeah.
So you've got this amazing Submariner here, which I know was your first kind of serious
good
luxury
watch.
watch.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about this, and tell me about why it reminds you of your wife.
Well, it's like I said, it was the first good watch that I bought with my own money. I say my own money. Part of it was I was in college, so I had some money from just odd jobs and stuff I was doing. And my godfather had passed away, and he left me some money. And part of the deal with that was that I had to do something stupid.
I love that.
With a portion of the money. Now, the rest, obviously, my parents were going to take and put away, and it wasn't a whole lot. But I thought, well, stupid, ding, I'm going to buy a watch. And yeah.
Love that.
So perfect. and I think it was about 1992, so I was around 20 years old. And obviously, the best watch in the world.
Right.
The only watch is a Rolex.
Yes.
And I think most people can relate to that.
Of course.
Regardless of where you are in this hobby, when you start out, it's just Rolex.
Yes.
Rolex, 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 Rolex.
Yes.
And also for me, it was sort of the G-Shock of watches because this was, when you read National Geographic,
Right.
the explorers are wearing these.
The military was
yeah,
wearing them,
everyone.
yeah.
So there was that history too. So I knew I had to get a Submariner. And what was interesting is back in 1992, you couldn't, like today, you couldn't just walk into a jeweler and get a Submariner.
Right.
There was about a year waiting list.
Wow.
And I needed it now. Also because I would have spent the money on something even stupider if I waited.
Such as?
So, you know what? I can't say.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think we would have spent the money on the same thing.
Probably the
Okay,
same thing. Yeah. So
yes.
being young, I got ideas, and so I went to. There used to be a Torno on the corner of 59th and Madison, and
Right.
it was actually run by the stepfather of a good friend of mine at the time. And this store was actually where I learned everything about watches. Most boutiques would not let a teenager in and just get his greasy mitts on everything, but this place would let me in. This was, the
amazing.
guys would say, "Oh, look, this came in. Check this out.
Wow.
This is what this," because we didn't have the internet back
that's
then.
great.
So I walked in there. It's probably one of the proudest moments of my life to be able to say, "I'm here to buy a watch."
Right.
And I want a Rolex. I want a Submariner. And of course, they didn't have a new one, but they had that. So that's a 16800 matte dial, one of the transitional ones, going from the acrylic and the older movements to the newer 3000 series movements. And
So it's got kind of the older dial, but with the
older
sapphire
dial,
crystal.
and it's the first one with the sapphire crystal, first one with 300 meter. I didn't know any of that shit.
Yes.
It was a Rolex, it was a Submariner, and now it's mine. I
Yes.
think I paid all in. It was I want to say like $1,800, which holy shit! Like I hid it from my parents. 'Cause
Right.
who is this kid wearing a Rolex? My dad wouldn't even wear a Rolex. And
When you had it on, did it make you feel really special?
it really did.
Yeah.
It's one of those feelings that I've captured a couple of other times. Maybe with the Perpetual. When I got my hands on that.
Yes.
I think now it's harder for me to have that feeling
Right.
again, but I still remember it like it was yesterday.
Yes.
And then what was funny is then later on I realized, wait a second, it doesn't glow in
Right.
the dark. Wait, these newer ones have these cool raised indexes. This
Yeah.
one's just slapped on there. Like, this watch sucks. I didn't feel that way about it, but I
actually,
loved it. I wore
yes.
the snot out of it. And then
Yeah.
so the funny thing with my wife is, before we were married, obviously, we were hanging out at my parents' country house, and we're in the pool.
Right.
And I'm lying on a float, and I took the watch off. I didn't want to get a watch tan.
It's very important to have an even tan.
I just thought
Yeah.
that was just something maybe people would notice,
Yes.
and it's
Yeah.
details. So,
Yes.
and as a watch collector,
What
obviously, I'm
SPF are you
detail-oriented.
using in a scenario like this?
In this scenario, this was back in the 90s, so
Just oil.
just
Just
probably
full
just
oil.
oil.
Just
Yeah,
baby
just
oil.
Probably, the more sun, the better.
Me too.
Yeah. So it was in my towel,
Right.
on my chair by the pool, and my wife was swimming in the shallow end,
Right.
or girlfriend.
Yeah.
And this horsefly started messing with her.
But it's not just any horsefly.
It's not just any horsefly.
This is your nemesis, right?
It's actually called the bug.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure it's the same fucking fly every year
Yeah.
that comes, and he homes in on you,
Yeah.
and he doesn't let go. Like, you
Yes.
have to go underwater and then swim around a bit,
Right.
and
Yes.
usually he's like, and then just zooms in. So I'm having a laugh because it's not letting her go. She finally runs out of the pool in the shallow end, runs up the steps, and she's running around. And I'm watching this thing like trying to land on her. And it's the funny, and it really was. I've never seen a fly sideways, like just trying to get her. And it hurts when this fucker gets you. So then she runs, and then she runs past the chaise lounge where my towel is, and whips it up over her head to get. And it was it was slow motion, like just like the movies, where all of a sudden I see the watch just go up in the air, and I'm like a fall off into the water. The bug goes away. His job is done, clearly, and just boom, right on the concrete.
Right.
And the thing is, that watch still ran for about a month.
Right.
But what happened, though, is the crown got really gouged, and the crystal got a little chipped on the side, and then I don't know what shook up inside.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually have the money to fix it at the time, and so it kind of just wound up in a drawer.
Yeah.
And about 2 years after that fact, I kind of really wasn't focused on watches so much. I went out to dinner with my mother for my birthday.
Yes.
And so every year my mother would take my sister. I have a twin sister. And she would say, you guys pick the fanciest restaurant. This is the only time I'm going to take you here.
Amazing.
Because otherwise you guys suck and you're not worth it. And so I still remember this restaurant, Picholine, which is now closed, but fancy joint.
Yes.
We're sitting there. I had to put a jacket on and stuff, and they got a cheese cart. It's a cheese cart.
I like a cheese cart, dude.
It's a cheese cart. It's fancy.
Well, I like a cheese cart because you can eat as much cheese as you want.
It was a lot of cheese.
Exactly.
That could tie into our conversation later.
Or that we began with.
That we began with, So we can kind of maybe seek into that with the cheese. So somewhere between, dinner finishing and the cheese cart, my mom gives me a box.
Right.
So you're present. And in the box is the watch, and she'd had it repaired.
Amazing.
I don't know how she knew where it was or that it was broken, but she had it fixed. And what's interesting is the person she brought it to knew what it was and didn't polish it.
Wow.
Didn't replace anything, just fixed the watch.
That's incredible. Especially didn't replace the hands or the dial.
That would be the first thing if you'd send it to Rolex.
First thing they replace,
Yeah, and so, and I still didn't realize the significance of this reference.
Yes.
So as I got older and I realized what it was, and I'd had it serviced a couple of times, I always said, leave it alone. And they were said, well, look, we can leave the dial in the hands, but we can replace the crystal, we can replace the crown.
Right.
Leave it.
Incredible.
So this watch goes to my son when he's 18, unless he's a dick. In which case I'm welding an Invicta to his wrist until he comes correct. But provided he's not like a complete asshole and he gets that watch, it's going to come with damage that
his mom
your mom did that.
Exactly.
So,
That's
and if
great.
he wants to fix it, it's yours. Once it's yours, do what the hell you want.
That's right.
But what's interesting is, so it ties into my wife, but also my mom, who took an interest in what I was doing. Yeah.
So let's continue on the theme of how awesome your mom is.
Yes.
And let's talk about this incredible watch, which is the ceramic IWC Big Pilot Perpetual calendar with the awesome double hemisphere moon phase.
Yeah, that's a beast. And it's interesting, before I bought it too, I think I went to the boutique about 3 times, the one on Madison Avenue, and just tried it on.
Yes.
And like an entire lunch hour. And I say tried it on, I'm walking past mirrors. I'm like, like, can you take a picture of me? I'm just gonna sit here. Because
I do that too. Come on, everyone does.
But but the issue with this was that it's a big watch. It's not a medium pilot. No, it's not a small pilot. It's a big pilot.
It is.
And these are 48 millimeters, not the standard 46. The thought was to maintain the visual proportions, to make the black ones a little bit bigger.
Yes.
And then there's just a restriction in terms of the ceramic, because it actually has to be a little bit bigger. So whatever. Yes. So I had to make sure I didn't look like I snuck in my daddy's watch box. Right. My wrist is just big enough to pull it off. But when they announced this watch, it was back in 2012, it really was almost as if their designers had gotten into my head.
Yes.
In a creepy way.
Because you were like a big fan of the Perpetual calendar already.
Always a big fan of that movement.
Yes.
And then, to put it in a big pilot case, because I'm not a dressy guy.
Yes.
And typically, when you think of a Perpetual calendar, I think of what you're wearing.
Right.
And I think of something gold and a little smaller, more discreet. Sure. And I'm a lot of things. Discreet, I don't think anyone's ever going to accuse me of. So this was it. IWC had pioneered the use of ceramic.
Yeah.
And also titanium in watches. So this embodies that. You could say that the Beor, the Flieger design is a classic that we really most closely associate with them. And then the movement, which has Kurt Klaus's DNA all over it. So as ridiculous of a watch as this is, it makes no sense, obviously, a pilot's watch with a Perpetual calendar out of ceramic. but it's also probably the most IWC watch
Totally.
you could get because it combines so many of their
ceramic, which is they were the first ones to make ceramic with the 3705 titanium. First ones to do titanium with the Porsche design. Curve houses completely synchronized,
series,
and the 5000,
and then to put that
movement.
Perpetual module in there.
And 7 days power reserve. You know?
Yeah, so I'm like, this is it.
Yes.
So when they announced this, I was like, I have to have this watch, and I contacted the AD I was working with most at the time, and I bought a few watches. It was Artistic Jewelers down in St. Martin. And Luke Wani, the guy that I deal with and still do, I sent him an email. I'm like, oh my God, do you see this? Like, I need this watch. I've got it. He's like, yeah, calm down. You know, we saw it. Let me get back to you.
That's right.
And so he does, and he's like, all right, it's good news and bad news. Good news, obviously, they're making it. Bad news is it's $38,000, and it's boutique only for the first year. So that just dashed my hopes, not getting it. And about 2 months later, he contacts me and says, "You still interested?"
Right.
Well, obviously I'm still interested, but my financial situation has not changed appreciably, so I'm not quite sure where you're going with this. Well, it turns out, you know, he was able to pull some strings, spoke to his IWC sales rep. He's like, "Look, it's my best client."
Right. Lies,
obviously. But this was true. I was the moderator for IWC on Time Zone.
That's right.
So he goes, "Oh, and he's the moderator on Time Zone. This is the guy you want to put the watch on his wrist. It'll really be, you know, whatever." So the price that he quoted me was amazing, and basically but it went up the chain, and somehow it came back down and said, "We're going to get him this watch."
Yeah. But it made sense for them to do that. I mean,
I guess
bring a lot of communication value to it, and you were the right guy to have it. I mean, you know, everything you just said, for example, you know, in terms of the 5000 caliber with 7 days power reserve, the ceramic, the Kurt Klaus movement, and then the fact that you're the IWC moderator on Time Zone as well.
I thought,
I mean, come on, that just makes sense.
And I think that would apply to basically any watch ever.
Yes.
That I would be the guy that you want to give a deal. Just looking directly at the camera. I don't care what the brand is. I'm your man. There's a bunch of cameras I don't want to look at, but this is
look at them all three.
All three. Just, you know, this guy who's got thumbs wants your watch. But so the price, it was still more than I could afford.
Right.
I just said yes on the bat. He's like, all right, well, you know, wire me the money and we'll get the ball rolling. I was like, okay, great. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I have to pay for it.
I know that feeling well.
So I have to sell a couple of watches. And but here's the thing. So my mother and I always had this deal where, within reason, if I wanted a watch, she would buy it, have it delivered to her apartment, and then I would just pay her under the table.
Right.
So my wife wouldn't see all this money go missing.
Yes.
I'd leave the box and stuff there. I just wear it home.
Yes.
And again, my wife wouldn't know the difference. And
did that work, incidentally?
It worked for a while.
Yeah.
But you know, these things always, you know, it's hubris.
Right.
You know, and which will bring any man down. And so, as clever as I think I am, and I'm not even remotely clever.
Come on.
So, but in this case, it kind of worked though. So I did manage to sell a couple watches. You know, I got the watch. I have to preface this by saying that the only way my mom would actually help me this time had a stupid little mohawk. And there's a story behind the mohawk that I won't get into. And I had it for a while. I thought I was cool. Clearly I wasn't. And she's like, "Look, I'll help you, but you have to shave that stupid thing off your fucking head."
Right.
And so the next day I show up for lunch and it's gone.
It's gone.
Come with me to the bank. Let's do this.
How old were you at the time?
This was about 39. I was approaching my 40th birthday.
Cool.
Which again, it gives you an idea how stupid it was for me to have this.
Wow.
You know,
it could be.
I wanted to be cool, Dad, but it didn't work. So mother knows best.
Yes.
So I get the watch, and we have our little payment schedule worked out.
Yes.
And so we're still over $10,000, and I've got the money. Now I'm just trying to work out like, well, when do we, you know, pay her this much here, this much there, whatever. And it was right on my birthday, and she's like, "Look, I know you have the money, and I know you're going to pay me back, but happy birthday. You know what? It's yours. You don't have to pay me. Don't tell your sister, because I'm not giving her $10,000. Yeah, she's not, you know, but, you know, and don't expect this again."
That's amazing.
But I love you. I love what you're doing. And, you know, I just want you to have this. And I also have to say that it was her father, my grandfather, who had bought me my first watch.
Right.
So it was kind of interesting how he had sort of supported me in that way, and then my mother has continued to support me. I do have to point out that, no, she has not actually bought me any other watches or done that for me since. But
that's still pretty awesome, though.
But this is what makes it so special to me. I was saying to you earlier, you know, IWC could come to me and say, "Look, Adam, we've redesigned this watch top to bottom, new technology, and it's like $100,000 now, but we want you to have it, but you just got to give us this one back. We need it for whatever.
Yes.
And I wouldn't be able to do it simply because it's more than a watch. It's the story. It's everything that goes with it.
Amazing.
And so that's probably my trademark watch, I guess.
Let's transition from here to talk a little bit about
Sure.
RedBar. So tell us the origins of this.
It's probably the most organic professional concern that you could imagine. It's in terms of its professional now, but when it started, it was me and one other individual, Dr. Jeff,
Yes.
Dr. Jeffrey Jacques, and we had met at a lunch with Michael Cobalt, of all people. And someone was down at Pastis, which is gone now, sadly, in the meatpacking district. And we had a great time. It was a great time talking with Mike and looking at watches. We were both Cobalt owners at the time.
Right.
And we were walking back to the subway, and we realized we not only were getting along famously, we worked a couple blocks away from each other.
Fantastic.
So we sort of thought, look, what if we met like once a month, and just talked about watches.
Wonderful.
And think about, when you think of the conversations you have with like the lay person, and they're going to look at you and go, oh, what is that watch you're wearing? I'll say, oh, it's a JLC, JaegerLeCoultre.
Right.
Oh, well, what's that? You explain a little bit. And the next question, how much?
Right.
Now, from there, it goes one of two ways.
Yeah.
Either, wow, you must be rich,
Right.
or not only are you rich, you're an idiot because I paid $40 for this watch and it keeps perfect time.
Right.
And so here was someone that I didn't have to deal with any of that.
Right.
That was immaterial. We just want to share the passion
Yes.
of talking about the watches.
Yes.
And so we started meeting once a month, and the bar that we met at that we found was sort of equidistant and affordable was a bar called RedBar.
Right.
It was on the border of Koreatown, run by a very eccentric and interesting woman named Sai.
Yes.
And we would meet there. It was an upstairs dive bar, if you
Yes.
will, above a Korean restaurant.
Fantastic.
And it just started to grow.
Yes.
Then there were 3 of us, then there were 5 of us, then there were 10 of us.
Yes.
Now we're meeting every 2 weeks, and then I'm getting emails. Are we doing RedBar? Is RedBar this week?
Is RedBar the original RedBar still exists?
No, it's actually now it's a duets karaoke.
Okay.
But I have been there several times just to
For the nostalgia.
kind of just for the nostalgia,
Yes.
and it's kind of hard to figure out where you are. They've expanded it,
Yes.
but I do try to get a room that's sort of in the spiritual space.
Yes.
And but it just grew from there. And when we finally started putting stuff on social media, that's I think when it took off.
Right.
And so RedBar Crew was sort of the hashtag we wanted to use, because if we use RedBar, there, believe it or not, a bunch of bars named RedBar.
Yes.
And so what happened is that we started getting comments from people and DMs saying, we wait every week to see these pictures, and you guys are having a great time, and we don't have that where we are.
Yes.
How do we get something like this started?
Yes.
And and then can we use this name? Go right ahead. I don't know, which I didn't. Go right, have fun. And then as it really started to take off, there was a thought that maybe we should try to rein it in a little bit, to sort of control this beast. Part of it was that, the whole point of RedBar is everybody's equal. We don't want snobs. We don't want anyone coming in thinking, oh, well, I have this watch. It's not as cool as that watch. And I certainly don't want anybody else in there going like, ugh, get this riffraff away from me. I only want to look at this,
Sure.
this, and this. And so that's when I was talking to James Lambden,
Right.
actually from Analog Shift, about, maybe we should try to do something with this.
Yes.
And so my friend Kathleen McGivney, who was coming out at the time, and I've known for years, probably one of the most organized, brutally efficient people I know,
Yes.
brought her on board, and I said, let's do this.
Amazing.
And so we created RedBar Group LLC.
Yes.
And then now we own the rights to the name and everything, but then every other chapter that's sprung up is now done sort of with our blessing.
Sure.
And run in a way that sort of keeps our philosophy of just openness and inclusiveness.
Yes. Let me ask you a question about that, because I both Yoni and Gabe are also members of RedBar.
Yes.
I think they've met through RedBar, actually.
Yeah.
And both of them said one of the things that appeals to them so much is exactly what you express, is that everyone comes in there feeling equal, right? You could have one guy with a PS Unique Rebel Force or a guy with a Swatch System 51, and no one feels they are superior or inferior to the other, and both have access to each other's pieces, and both are interested in each other's pieces. But there's a certain kind of responsibility and a certain mentality in terms of the person that you therefore let in there, because it's got to be the right type of person.
It's not just anybody.
So how do you ascertain whether that person is going to be RedBar material?
It's interesting. A lot of people, obviously, it's a question they ask, and it's easier to figure out than you would think. Frankly, we all leave these digital footprints and even the bare minimum of due diligence online, and you can see what people are posting, what they're talking about. You can, any Google search will show you, who's into it and who's an idiot.
Right.
And I think there's certainly a bit of caveat emptor.
Yes.
I say, look, bring what you're comfortable bringing. One of our rules, though, is you treat the pieces better than your own.
Nice.
So we really haven't had any issues with that. And
because that is a concern, sometimes you go to a watch
concern.
gathering, and you'll see guys kind of putting 2-3 watches together, and I get that, like, from the vintage culture, if those watches have already been around for a while. But if you've got someone with like a brand new high polished watch and you stick it next to something else with a big crown on it,
well, this is kind of funny actually. For a long time, the space that we meet at now, they have metal tables, which is clearly not conducive
not
to putting watches down. So we would steal all the menus and kind of create this sort of
safe zone.
safe zone. And then one day, like, he kind of needed the menus, and some of them were getting a little ratty, and I guess he'd just throw them out, wouldn't replace them. And it got to a point where we really couldn't get enough menus. And then they're like, oh, well, we can put a tablecloth down. Wait, this whole time you had a tablecloth? Like, we could, they're like, yeah. So now, obviously, we show up, we have our own space, and we meet every week in the city.
Yes.
And then they'll just set up with the tablecloth. So now we've kind of gotten past that.
Yes.
But, if you, like, it's almost by definition, if this is a way you want to spend your time.
Yes.
With, let's be honest, mainly a bunch of dudes.
Right.
And playing with watches, you already kind of know the rules. Like,
Yes.
that, we're not just even when we do the sex pile.
Yes.
A term that was
your table shot.
Yeah, the table, our table shot,
Yes.
a term coined by Kathleen. I remember she's just like,
sex pile.
That's a pile of sex right there. Sex pile. I think I still remember when she said that, and we're like,
why she's CEO.
And we're like, hashtag, yeah,
Fantastic.
done. And but even then, if you look carefully, there's no metal touching metal.
Yeah.
We actually are. We're pretty anal about that.
Yeah.
So. But it's it's just fun. Again, the only rules: no assholes.
Yes.
Treat watches better than you treat your own, and
Yes.
no Invictus.
Tell me about the no Invicta rule.
Gee, where does this begin? To me, it's a brand that kind of shits on everything that we hold dear about horology.
Yes.
And people, tried to call me a snob for that. And I go, dude, I wear GShock, I wear Casio, I wear Seiko, I wear Citizen. I mean, it's not about the price. Every one of the watches I own, they bring something to the table that has a certain level of significance to us.
And something unique.
Or something unique.
Exactly.
And whereas, honestly, all they do are steal people's designs.
Right.
They lie about the provenance of their watches that they're manufacturing.
Yes.
And then if they do try to do something original,
Right.
my Lord, kill it with fire, for Christ's sake. And then nothing hurts, nothing upsets me more when you see some cat with like 200 Invictas.
Ooh.
And this is his collection.
Right.
And all I can think of is how many real watches that you could have bought.
Yes.
So on one, maybe you have to give them credit. Maybe it's a gateway drug to an extent, and some people grow beyond it
But
and
it's like a really
realize.
sort of dirty, shitty gateway drug.
But I'm just like, there are other gateway
Yes.
drugs. So
Yes.
I feel like, look, you can own one,
Yes.
but just you got to leave it outside.
Yes.
If it's not there when you come back, like, you're welcome.
You're probably in better.
I did that for you.
Better space.
Now buy a real watch.
How many chapters of the RedBar Crew are there in the world today?
We're about 55 now.
Wow, that's huge.
Around the world.
That's incredible.
And it's a nice phenomenon. I think that, and one thing we found too is a lot of local groups will reach out to us.
Yes.
And sort of, they'll kind of, I think, hit a critical mass, and then maybe they're not getting the attention, or they just want to grow a little more.
Yes.
And there's a certain cachet, and I think a certain legitimacy now that our name confers to you.
Yeah.
And they sort of ask,
But
look,
also
can we
the
come under your
sense of
umbrella?
community as well.
Right? But it's to be part of that community, because if you're a member of one chapter, you can go anywhere.
You can kind of flow in and out.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
amazing.
if you're traveling to New York, I
Yes.
mean, you hit us up, come on out. You know, if I'm in another city and they're meeting that week,
Yes.
come on out.
You could even be the one that belongs to no chapter. You're a nomad, like in the Hells
No,
Angels.
but I just a wanderer. Yeah, wandering in the desert. So.
And I know one of the other active groups is in England. Is that right? In London.
London, a very, very active chapter.
Yeah, nice bunch of guys. We worked with them on a Bell and Ross launch that we did recently.
Yes, I know Kathleen was out there for that too.
and she's very cool.
Yeah, she's a good egg, and she gets it.
Yes.
She's really. It was interesting when she was actually lived in LA for a while, and when she came back, and it was like with a husband in tow.
Yes.
That would be Adam, our photographer.
Yes. Who's very cool.
Yeah, he's a very distinctive individual.
Yes.
And and people ask about him, and like, he was a photographer before this, so there isn't a, like he just all of a sudden figured this crap out.
Right.
It's his training. But she goes from 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds flat. Like, so what is this you're doing?
Yeah.
Maybe we can come out, Adam collects swatches, which he'd always done.
Right.
And maybe we'll bring some of these things out.
Yes.
And the next thing you know, she's got a Reverso, Maurice Grossman.
But it's great also
really,
because Kathleen's got tattoos. Adam's got a kind of like a certain look about him.
But
it also makes like watches relevant to the real generation of people in the world who are consuming them.
But like, they're real people, just like none of us are.
You're not in a
we're not fancy people.
Yeah, no, but the point is, it's like a lot of times watch brands kind of imagine themselves creating watches for guys who are listening to harp music. You know what I mean? Like and like blowing dusty farts out of their fucking refined assholes. And the point is, watches should be made for the people who are going to wear them that have tattoos, that like to have a drink, that like to curse from time to time, that are eating vegetables and go to the toilet a lot.
Yes,
but they're real people,
Yeah,
and that's super important.
That's funny, real watches and for real people. That's the tagline now for Auris.
Let's talk about the Auris. First of all, let's talk about the limited edition, but also your affection for the Auris Bear.
Well, obviously, first of all, I just love the brand. I always have. And we actually worked with them recently for a limited edition watch.
Yes.
We made 100 of them. I didn't actually bring
Beautiful, incidentally.
It came out
Stunning
far better. I mean, I knew it would be good. I didn't know it was going to be that good.
It's funny because well, anyway, you guys will find out soon. But we were working at the same time on a limited edition with that watch.
Yeah.
And then yours came out just before ours was about to come out. And my conversation with Rolf was like, that RedBar watch is so good that you just got to let people like kind of enjoy that. And then we'll come out next year. We'll come out next year. That was a brilliant watch. I love that.
And he has only himself to blame because he's the one who discovered the dial.
Yes.
That oxblood, that sort of gradient, and it actually was a dial they had done, I think, in the late 60s, potentially, or late 50s or 60s, and only time.
Yes.
And so when we saw that, because our logo, if you take the Pantone color, it's not going to work as a dial. And but it came out so well.
Yes.
And we were only going to do 50, and he's like, no, you have to do 100. Yeah. We've got to at least do 100. And then he's kind of pissed, like, well, now we can't use it. I'm like, sorry.
Hey,
you're the one.
It was your idea.
Yeah, you should have been like, wow, that's actually too good. I'll just put that in my pocket right here and show them something else.
That's
But as far as the Bear goes, I mean, who doesn't love a bear?
I love the bear.
You got to love the bear. And he
gets kidnapped a lot, though. Yeah.
Can I tell you? So I didn't go to Basel last year.
Yes.
And so one of the odder stories to come out of the show, and obviously, as you know, there are plenty of odd stories that come out of these shows.
Oh, yeah.
Was that the bear was kidnapped.
Yes.
And they actually bear napped, as it were.
Yeah.
And so it was actually on their feed and
whatever.
If you see this bear, like contact. And so I texted VJ Geronimo, the CEO for the USA, and I said, wow, what amazing marketing! Like, so what's the deal here? Like, what's the end game? Is there like someone finds him? Like, where'd you stash him? And he's like, no, somebody actually stole it. Like, we don't know where it is.
Yes.
I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, it was like two random dudes from Basel.
Yeah, so I guess it was at an event, and then these guys were drunk and like took him, and then sold him to another couple for I think the price was 85 Swiss francs.
Yes. Yes,
and
which I'm sure they just use immediately for beer.
Obviously, they just went and got drunker and probably stole another mascot.
Yes.
And so, and I don't know how this couple, and they brought him home, and they must have been pretty drunk too, to pay $85 for this bear. And then they somehow realized what they had. And then contacted, I don't know whom at the company, and so they got it back. Apparently they paid them back, whatever they, okay, here's your 85 francs, thank you, it's your reward. And
I want to know if there was a whole proof of life thing going on. It was like,
snapped off like his
I want today's newspaper with the bear.
Yeah, the bear's like, so they got him back.
But he's a legend,
It was, and I said the other day, I was like, Rolf, why a bear? Like, I don't. Was there some special meaning with Auris and a bear? And he just goes, think about when you were a child and what did you have? A teddy bear. Everybody likes a bear,
of course.
Because like, why isn't it the Auris fox? Like, why isn't it the Auris platypus? Like, why isn't it? And so apparently, it's just people love bears.
Fantastic. Let's talk about maybe one last watch here. Would you like to talk about the Jaeger or the AP?
You pick.
Let's talk about the Reverso. This is a pretty cool watch, and I know you got the very first one that landed in America.
Yes.
Before even
Ben Clymer. It's the only thing I've got on Ben. I got nothing on this guy. Well, actually, I don't think he has a 2000 and '7 Acura MDX that smells like feet.
Sweet, dude.
I got that ride. That's all me. Yeah. So I have that, and the feed part is just because my kids eat in the car. I tell them not to. I find things that I just, God. So I have that.
Yes.
And while he does have that watch, it was interesting when I've always known what a reverso was. And to me, that's interesting as a story in and of itself. Before I even got super into watches, I knew in the way that you kind of know what a Submariner is.
Yes.
And you might not be into watches. And to me, it's one of those icons right up there with like the Speedmaster. And so I knew I would have one day, but there was this Goldilocks scenario going on where it was too big or too small, or the proportions were never quite right.
Yes.
And when they announced the tribute to 1931,
yes.
And this is, I think, really Philippe Bonnet's baby.
Yeah.
I just thought,
He's a
there
great guy.
it is. And he is a great guy and a real watch guy.
Yes.
And the direction I think he's taken the brand is with his input too, is really kind of where they need to go.
Yeah.
And so with this watch, I just thought, wow, they did it.
Yes.
This is going to be mine, and it's just time only, solid case back that I can have engraved at some point, and it has some lume. Believe it or not, I'm not really a dress watch guy, and I like the idea of the practicality.
Yes.
And so they had that watch, and so I'm going to get one, and then a little bit after they announce it, then they announced that they're going to do the U.S. edition.
Right.
So that was the first time that they'd partnered with Casa Fagliano.
Yes.
So a famous Argentinian bootmaker, polo
boots, yes.
And so they was going to have the strap, and then the dial was going to be a little different with the syringe hands.
Yes.
And then the exact font from the first reverso that they had done. So I bought Tribute to 1931. I think I said 32. But
No, you said 31.
I did? Oh,
yeah.
Wow, look at me. Actually, I wasn't drinking. So
Yet.
So I put in an order immediately, but I'm like, I've got to get this watch. I'm going to only make 100. It's going to sell out instantly.
Right.
And and so I'm not really understanding how these things work. Apparently, I had plenty of time to order it.
Right.
And a friend of mine, Howard Parr, who used to be a moderator also with Time Zone, was very close with the brand. And so I said, look, you've got to put a good word in for me. And he's like, well, Adam, you know Philippe.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the guy who's doing it.
Yes.
Just email him. I'm like, I don't know that I know him well enough. Just email him. So I'm like, I need this watch. I've got to be. And he's like, okay, calm down. We put you down. You'll get one.
Right.
And they're not numbered. He was very specific about that. He wanted to be about the watch and not about numbering. He's like, if you have it and you're wearing it, you know what you have.
Yes.
If somebody else knows what it is, they'll know, but you don't need to. And I appreciate that philosophy too. So I ordered the watch, and the individual I was dealing with, Seth, at the boutique in, I think it was through the Los Angeles, the Beverly Hills boutique. Mm-hmm. When it came in, he sent it to me in a service box.
Right.
Because they didn't even have the boxes yet.
Yes.
And the watch had come in. He says, so you're going to be the first one unless you want to wait, and we'll get the box and we'll send you the whole schmeal together. I was like, no, I need this watch now. And so that's how I got the first one.
Amazing.
And actually, believe it or not, so it still is not engraved.
Yeah, I flipped it over and saw. But when you do have it engraved, what are you going to put on there?
Well, I thought about it long and hard. And actually, this watch will go to my daughter when she turns 18.
Oh, how nice.
And I'm pretty certain she's not going to be an asshole, so she's fine. So Lola's pretty cool.
Yes.
She already calls this Daddy's flip over watch,
Nice.
and she knows it's hers. And even from an early age, she knew how to properly do it. A lot of people will just snap it in. No, you got to do it on the side.
Yes.
So she knows that. And I thought, well, what would make this real for her?
Yes.
My initials, her initials, my initials and her initials, my birth date, her birth date, our birth dates, and then I realized she's such a goofball that I'm going to have my face engraved on the back of it.
Wow.
Making a really stupid expression. Like,
fantastic.
Something like that.
I love that.
And every time she flips it over, her dad's going to be staring back at her, looking like an idiot, which is how she knows me.
Well,
as an idiot.
it'll make her laugh,
And even like when I'm dead and buried, and her great grandchildren like, Grandma, show us, your daddy's face again, and then I'll just be immortalized. And obviously, it destroys the value of the watch. But I realize I'm never going to sell this anyway. So
that's amazing.
So I have to, but it's very expensive apparently to do that. So I still have other watches I want to buy before I make that Lola's watch.
The engraver that they use in the United States, well, he engraved my watch. He's very good, but.
JC Randall, I think, but he's retired.
Oh, has he?
So I actually had an agreement that as long as he was alive, there would be one last commission
Right.
that I could. I don't know if they remember or wrote that down.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm hoping I hope you're alive, buddy. You know, if so, just stick around a little longer because I don't have the money right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Yes.
But it's I mean, he can do it. You just send him a picture.
Yes.
And
He's extraordinary.
People put their dogs on the
Yes.
back. So I think if you can put a dog on the back, you can put me on the back.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Adam, thank you so much.
No, it was a real pleasure.
Thank you,
again.
sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Gentlemen.
That's it.